your chance to be ruthless.
Hey kid, don't ever let them get inside your head. They'll tell you what to do in life instead of everything you know that you could get. Don't let them guide your life towards regret. I'll fight for what I love with every breath. My past is filled with things I won't forget. I use them all to push me to my best. So treat the worst of times just like a test. If only I could go back in time, I'd tell myself that everything will end up alright. Just push yourself, test yourself, figure out what you like, and find your limits, don't be rigid, always work towards a prime. Surround yourself with open minds, people can change your life. A few friends with intent can help you feel alive. Find a passion, take some action, and with a little time.
It's the end of week 3, and that means that this is the end of the first 3-week build in the program. I thought this would be a good time to do a body composition check. Using fat calipers on yourself is damn near impossible to do well, so Rebecca is helping me out. If you've never had this done, it's basically getting pinched over and over again. More specifically, the way it works is you take measurements of the subcutaneous fat at various locations on your body and plug them into an online calculator. The two most popular calculators use either 3 measurements or 7 measurements. In general, the 7 measurement calculator is believed to give a more accurate reading, which makes sense. For my purposes, this is plenty accurate, and you can't beat the price compared to other more accurate methods like a DEXA scan, which are very expensive. Oh, and I should point out, Rebecca is my wife, training partner, sometimes coach, always #1 fan, and a hell of an athlete in her own right. She is also tough and strong. So the jackassery coming up is all in good fun, and there was no harassment or mean-spirited stuff going on in spite of my crazy eyes. As I'm sure you've noticed, my default setting is just awkwardly intense on camera. I'm gonna work on that. At this point though, I figure you're asking, why would a 51-year-old average age grouper triathlete feel the need to do this? Valid question. Before I answer it though, let me assure you, I'm not building to some claim that you have to be a specific body fat level or BMI or whatever to do an Ironman. Hell, I'm not even suggesting you have to be a certain body composition to throw down a fast Ironman. But I do have a very sound reason for me personally to focus on optimizing my body composition. And I think I can best illustrate this by sharing the story of my first 2 attempts at Ironman 70.3. I got into triathlon at the age of 39 in response to a health scare. At the time, I was 40 pounds overweight, working a high-stress job, eating a shit diet, drinking too much, basically the standard American dad bod diet. I was a heart attack waiting to happen. After collapsing at home from a mild cardiac event, I took a hard look in the mirror and had what I now refer to as my David Goggins moment. Long story short, I found triathlon, lost about 30 pounds, and worked my way from not being able to run a mile to becoming an average age grouper. Without triathlon, I'm not sure I would still be here. The footage rolling here is from my first triathlon and the greatest sprint triathlon in America, River Cities Triathlon in Shreveport, Louisiana. The race is put on by Sports Spectrum, which also happens to be the greatest runners and triathlon shop in America. Fast forward 5 years, and after being on the start line of a dozen or so sprints in Olympics, I made the jump to my first Ironman race, Ironman 70.3 Miami. Rebecca and I both signed up, and for the first time in my young triathlon career, I actually launched into a structured training plan. I settled on a 16-week 70.3 specific program and went to work. Coming off of my first triathlon back in 2011, I continued to slim down all the way to 153 pounds by August of 2012. Over the next few years, a few pounds crept back on, and in 2016, at the start of my 70.3 plan, I was weighing in at about 165 pounds. But I felt pretty good and was in decent shape. The first 8 weeks of the training went great, but around week 9, I began developing a significant pain in my left foot. By week 13, I had removed running from my plan altogether. Still, I made it to the start line optimistic and basically ignoring the stress fracture in my foot. It's a shame they no longer hold the Miami race. It truly was a great destination, and with all the international competitors, it felt like we were racing in another country. After a terrible swim, I regrouped and was holding a solid pace into a tough headwind, but feeling good. Then at mile 12, my crank broke and fell off. Yep, it fell the fuck off. That ended my day and is to this day the only race I've ever DNF'd. Rebecca did finish though and got her first 70.3 medal. In hindsight, maybe it was for the better that I had a mechanical that took me out before the run, because I probably would have done some serious damage to my foot getting to the finish line. In spite of the disappointment of Miami and the foot injury, I immediately signed up for Ironman 70.3 Texas for the following April. I had every intention of training even better this time around, but this was a crazy busy time for me at work, and I wound up basically going to Galveston straight off the couch. I was heavier than I was in Miami at 175 pounds now, and my body composition had worsened as well. Based on these photos, I would guess my body fat was in the range of 30%. But I was on a mission to finish my first 70.3, so I hit the start line with a firm resolve. A surprisingly good swim was the high point of the day though. An embarrassingly slow bite, fighting off quad cramps from mile 45 on, gave way to a death march of a half marathon. But I did make it to the finish line. Mission accomplished. It was at this finish line in Galveston that I came to the realization that my body in that form was not suited for longer distance triathlon. I was too heavy for my frame, especially given my history of sports injuries. In college, I suffered a catastrophic knee injury, complete dislocation. My ACL exploded, my other ligaments were torn, and my meniscus was ripped free, taking with it the rest of the cartilage in my knee. And the stress fracture in my foot actually occurred just forward of a bone I broke in that foot in high school. The bottom line was that for me to go long, I knew I needed to optimize my body composition. I needed to get both lighter and stronger. But what I didn't know at that time was how to do it. And it took me a few more years to figure that out. If you're going to have a goal, it should be specific and measurable. So before I could tackle a body recount project, I needed to set some goals. I needed to know what weight and what body fat percentage I would need to be to feel confident I could take on the volume of training for an Ironman. So I did some research and found that pro men are typically 8% body fat, and on average weigh in at around 2.3 pounds per inch of height. Obviously, trying to hold myself to this pro standard would be absurd, but it was a good starting point. I settled on 150 pounds as my ideal weight based on what I weighed at my fittest point in college. Coming up with a body fat percentage goal was a little harder. You might ask, why even track body fat at all? Well, I did so because I wanted to make sure that as I dropped weight, I was shedding body fat instead of losing lean muscle mass. Eventually, I settled on a goal of getting under 15%. With my goal set, I was ready to get on with my body recomp. This was November of 2021, heading into the holidays though, so I worked on my recomp plan with a planned launch of January 2022. The specifics of how I executed my body recomp is the subject of part 2 of this video. Okay, now getting back to the task at hand, calculating my current body fat percentage. Entering the 7 measurements and pressing calculate, there it is, 13%. And my current weight is running about 150 pounds plus or minus a pound or two right now. So with my body comp goals achieved, I'm confident I can take on the heavier training volume in the coming weeks. Now it's just time to get after it. So if you would like to know how I pulled off my body recomp, check out part 2 of this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.